Hi, everyone, and thanks for joining us here in the Rochester Press Box. Bill Pucko, happy to be with you. Guys, Tariq, how you doing?
Pretty good. Going to get some football, but not the football we really want from college and NFL.
Oh, it's coming, though.
Yeah.
It's coming.
But you're not excited for Notre Dame Navy live from Ireland?
Very good. Hey, you guys hazard a guess as we're sort of on that subject. What were the three biggest sports in the 50s and 60s? Three most popular sports back then.
Baseball, boxing, and I'm missing one.
Horse racing.
Oh,
You guys
that's
got it.
right.
Yeah.
You nailed it. So I'm just thinking, this is about, why football has such a grip on us in that, it starts this week and it doesn't stop until early February. Like, what is it about football, and will this ever change?
I don't, you know what? I like to see a sport that's going to be able to try. We're so entrenched now. It's almost gotten to the point of premier soccer or premier football, where people are just basically living for their team to play and win, and will live and die on them winning that week. And so if you watch sort of Premier League soccer, it's the entire stadium into it, just like an NFL game. They wear their jerseys. They plan the entire day for it. That's where the NFL is right now. I don't know of any other day of the week, and Duffy, you brought this up before, that a sport controls Sunday and Thursday and looking to spread to other countries.
I think it comes down to visually pleasing. Like, you bring up those three sports when, color television wasn't a standard thing. I mean, boxing was huge on the radio, which always blows my mind.
That's an interesting answer.
Well, think about it. The way that football's played today, right? They're literal superheroes out there. I mean, you can see it compared to the folks that they're standing next to. The colors are beautiful. The game moves fast. It's exciting. It's an easy sport to understand. You just want to get the ball into that thing. Whereas the other sports you just named, yes, boxing and horse racing are very simple, but there was scandal. There was controversy, right? Like, the best folks weren't fighting. You find out that the mob were involved in a bunch of them in high level for a very long time. And then when baseball, baseball was huge in this country up until the mid-90s. And I say huge as in what it was in the 50s and 60s. It's not as visually pleasing to the casual sports fan as football is.
I thought there was a nick that was happening as far as football goes when the whole concussion issue came out. And then the mothers get involved and said, my kid's not playing football. Presumably this was how it was going to go. And eventually there'd be a talent drain and football might actually get hurt by this. But that doesn't seem to have happened at all.
They fought all the way through that. To the other thing when it comes to sort of horse racing, I'm not sure, our thought process on animals and pets has totally changed from that era to now.
Which is funny because we have the opposite on athletes, right? Like, we're worried about what happens to the horse, but these guys, you brought up the concussion, like, you see what the consequences are. They get paid to do it. A horse does too, gets a lot of feed, but you were saying, I'm sorry.
But the other part of it too is that the betting has increased too, which horse racing is all about betting. That's all it basically is about. You don't just root for a horse and walk around with a horse head around.
Some of us do.
Hoping that your horse is going to win. It's all about betting, which is also taking the forefront to it now. Obviously you have baseball, basketball, you can bet all these other different sports, but NFL is just the sport to bet all the time.
Going back to that point you brought up about is there going to be a talent drain? I don't think we've reached the point where we could have seen it, because that concussion discussion was only 10, 15 years old, right? Like, it's a fact that high school football programs in this area have been hurt by kids not coming out. In fact, some high school sports teams in Section 5 and Section 6 have gone to, 8-man football, right? Like, maybe there are parts of the country where football is so dominant, high school football, Florida, Texas, California, New Jersey, that will never happen. But it might be too early to tell if that was what it originates how football collapses in this country.
And the other part of that too, when you talk about concussions, I don't know about you, I've seen a lot of NFL players go down, stay down, and become seriously hurt. Damar Hamlin, obviously one of them. Another one I think just took place over the weekend with the Patriots. It's become some of this thing where it is more violent. The concussions never went away, but it's become even more dangerous.
But look at how the kid gloves were handling Tua with.
Yeah.
I mean, because of the concussion
literally
issue,
kid judo gloves.
He's one maybe injury. He's one concussion away from being asked not to play.
But it's the part of the body that we're worried about, the brain. I think you can repair an arm, you can repair a leg, you can repair other parts of your body, but the brain is just still that little world where we're scared of.
You guys saying this is still a threat to the sport?
I think so. Well, look, to your point earlier, in the first 2 weeks of preseason football, 5 players were carted off in stretchers. That Patriots game didn't finish up because of the fear that someone was seriously hurt, having teammates. Look, Damar Hamlin changed everything, right? Because it put a face and a name and a family and a moment that we all watched on national television. I remember thinking I was going to wake up and find out that he died. Like, I was expecting that thing to happen. So we watched Damar Hamlin die. Like, I think this year, the way that injuries show up in the game are viewed differently, and that could also be something that changes stuff.
This is the Rochester Press Box. We're talking Buffalo Bills next. Just passing through. J-Mac, Soccer Sam Fantuzzo, Loretta Scott, Joe Beard, 29 in all, life lessons from notable Rochesterians. Available now.
I have some travel books, Volume 1, Volume 2. You'll be able to get one of these books for free when you buy the new Volume 2 for only $14.95. Contact me at MikeTheGetawayGuy@gmail.com.
Our Buffalo Bills segment brought to you by Connors & Ferris, your trusted and dedicated workers' comp attorneys and proud sponsor of Buffalo Bills Training Camp.
Welcome back. Thanks for joining us here in the Rochester Press Box, our Buffalo Bills segment brought to you by Connors & Ferris, your workers' comp attorneys. I know you hate when I talk about the window closing on the Buffalo Bills, and this is a year off. But I saw a statistic that said that Josh Allen is going to represent 18% of the Bills' cap hit next year, starting next year with a thing. And there's a theory out there that if it's over 15%, you can't compete.
Sure, yeah.
Does this worry you?
Well, no, because the salary cap doesn't actually exist in real life. Because as soon as the season's over, Brandon Beane and the rest of the front office is going to go in and they're going to restructure that deal so it's no longer 18% of the cap, and they're just going to kick it down the road and kick it down the road and kick it down the road. There will be a time where you can no longer kick it down the road because Josh Allen is only going to play for X amount of years, and that retirement is going to bury your cap situation. But in all reality, the Bills are still 2 to 3 years away from having legitimate issues with their cap, the way that the NFL allows them to move these contracts around to keep good teams competitive.
I also think the way you've been drafting, especially at your offensive end, has been brilliant. I mean, you've got young kids in there that are going to be on those rookie contracts for a little bit now, and I think it's going to spread out pretty well offensively. Defensively is where I'm a little bit concerned because you paid a lot on defense on that end, but I believe they'll restructure the contracts. But one thing I can take away from last week's preseason game against the Steelers, oh my goodness, your wide receiver core is unbelievable. And now, are you a little bit concerned about your backup quarterback situation?
Well, I mean, look, yeah, I don't know if the backup quarterback's on the roster as we say this. I know that the game will have been played after this airs.
Yeah.
It wouldn't surprise me if the Bills hold on to see who's available Tuesday and then make a cut. I think Barkley's on this roster. Well, he's on the practice squad. Yeah, Kyle Allen, unless he has the game of his career on Saturday, even then.
A little bit concerned.
And you know, the issue, I'm going to go back to what I brought up at the first time. I said that the issue is kind of false. I mean, I set it up that way with the 18% Josh Allen. The fact is, Patrick Mahomes, I think, represented 4% of the Chiefs' cap hit the year before they won the Super Bowl when he was 16 or 17%. So, like you said, there are ways around this.
But you know what's interesting about that is that he had his deal, he got the deal, and now it'll be a little bit more favorable, especially when you talk about what other quarterbacks are going to get compared to where he's at right now. You know full well there'll be another higher paid quarterback. Look at what happened this year with the Philadelphia Eagles and their quarterback situation. So Jalen Hurts. So you know in 3 or 4 years we'll be right back at this table again. If he's able to get another ring between now and then restructure his deal again, my goodness. I mean, we could be looking at the highest paid quarterback ever.
By the way, you brought up the domination of the NFL when it comes to, our wallets and fan bases. Like, these long-term deals that these quarterbacks are signing that seem astronomical. When Josh Allen signed his deal 3 years ago, was it? You couldn't believe you were giving that guy that much money. Now, he's the best quarterback bargain in the NFL, legitimately. Yeah. The cap is only going up based on the money that the league is going to make. And as we talked about, they're now expanding into Europe, playing games in Germany this year. It's not as dire as you think.
And they're sending him overseas to do that. The other question is the window closing. I know you get a little bit nervous about that. You don't think it's closed at all?
No, I don't think it's closing. Look, it's going to close if you cannot replace the players that are aging out. Like Stephon Diggs said during training camp, and I'm paraphrasing, that I've had more good games than I will have good games, implying that he's getting older. He's right. But, I mean, you have the opportunity to draft to replace those guys. The Steelers were able to do it for years. I'm not even going to bring up the Patriots because Brady's taking no money, as a Ponzi scheme. It's a whole other thing. But
Ponzi scheme.
I'll stand by it. Yeah, as long as you can replace the quality players that you have, which is tough.
Yes.
It's not about the money. It's about replacing those guys.
Our Buffalo Bills segment, brought to you by Connors and Ferris, like it or not, is next. Here's the Press Box Trivia question, brought to you by Market View Liquor, where exceptional customer service meets an extensive selection. Jefferson Road.
Hey, hello again. Mike O'Brien, your getaway guy. Are you ready for one of the most amazing getaways here at Niagara Falls, USA? Come along for the ride. It's Cave of the Winds. Look for the Getaway Guy on Facebook.
Here's the Press Box Trivia answer, brought to you by Market View Liquor, where exceptional customer service meets an extensive selection. Jefferson Road at 390. Welcome back. Thanks for joining us here. Rochester Press Box. Our Like It or Not segment is brought to you by Sport Clips. Where the MVP experience is better than ever, Sport Clips. It's a game changer with no appointments needed. Stop by a Rochester location today. Pat, like it or not, signing the Bills signed Ty Johnson.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Is this a guy who's going to be taking the bulk of the carries because he have injuries at running back on Saturday in his final preseason game? Is this a guy, because he is in the mold of Naeem Hines, who's out for the season after that unfortunate jet ski incident. He averaged 5 yards a carry in New York last year, and I think he had over 30 catches. He's that type of guy. The Bills have also been experimenting in kick returns with different players. Andy Isabella, a guy who may not make this roster, was returning them the other day. He could be a kick return solution. Like, we are so late in the preseason, and it's so hard to tell what they want to do with the running backs. I'll be honest with you, I have no idea what they're thinking.
I think Isabella's a great player. I think he's got to be on that roster.
He's not going to make the roster.
I know he's not, but I'm just saying.
He's been the guy in camp, though, right?
It has been fun to follow him, and you know full well the Bills and the Bills organization love to have that one guy that's kind of this X factor player, and Isabella is that guy. It should be interesting to see what the Bills do with the final cuts.
And the whole running back situation. You're big on the running backs.
Oh yeah.
Strength in numbers. I mean, they've been bringing in everyone they can find to try to fill roster spots in that spot.
I mean, I know full well we'll talk a bit about Taylor, but I mean, there's going to be some guys that you could probably pick up somewhere down the line. I'm not too really worried about it.
I don't even think you need to do that. Latavius Murray at 7'9" he's running really well in the preseason. And Harris, I mean, let's hope the knee injury isn't so serious that it affects the regular season, but I mean, he's a legitimate player.
You need about 4 running backs for the NFL season, 17 games plus.
So, like it or not, what the Colts are doing, you got Jonathan Taylor out there all of a sudden.
Do I like
best running back in football?
Do I like it for the Colts? No, because I think they're resetting it. I think Taylor would be great addition to Richardson and help with his development. Now you're putting it all on this kid, a rookie, and remember, he was a stretch to go that high, so I would not have done this, but you can understand that they're at an impasse. I never believe owners of teams that say, I'm not trading this all-star running back, he's going to be a Colt. Now you're shopping him. So you might as well get value for him now. I think the best thing that the Colts can do, start all over again, but get somebody to help this kid out.
Well, this is more extreme, though. We're talking about the running backs being devalued. This, to me, is the most extreme example.
Yeah, I agree. And I don't know, again, like you're talking about chasing picks that don't exist. You're not going to get a first-round pick for him. He is worth way more to you than what was going to come back in return. I mean, pay the guy for... Who are you paying with the money that you're not paying him, is my question. Who? Because you're 3 years away from being a legitimate contender anyway, and it's a good fight. It doesn't make any sense.
Pay him now to protect your quarterback for the future.
That's a good point.
The kid can be good, but if you put it all on him, it may take 4 years. And NFL quarterbacks, especially getting drafted, don't have 4 years. They have about 14 games before they decide whether or not you're going to be a starting quarterback.
Because they got the time, because you're the soccer guy.
Yeah.
Any like it or nots in terms of Spain winning the Women's World Cup?
A great game to watch. I did not watch it in real time. As a matter of fact, I thought it was brilliant, the fact that they re-aired it again, like 4 hours afterwards, because I thought it was real time. And then my son was like, wait a minute, didn't they play this game already? I'm like, no, it says
Don't
live
spoil
final.
it.
And then what does he do? What do teenagers do? Go straight to that phone and, guess Dad, Spain won. Damn it.
So he spoiled it.
Yeah, I was in the halftime about 56 minutes into the game where he looked at his phone and told me the truth.
You are now dad who doesn't understand technology. I want you to know that.
I ain't getting up 3 o'clock in the morning to watch a game. I don't know about anybody else.
Or you feel like I
listen
do, because I do a lot of DVRing of games that I watch later. At the phone and the watch, put them in another room and you just stay away from them.
Okay, I take
it's
it back.
the only way.
I'm now sitting with 2 dads that don't understand technology.
Yeah, but you could count on me for that.
You're right.
Our Like It or Not segment was brought to you by Sport Clips. Unfinished Business is next.
Who plays a game at 3 a.m.?
The Press Box Stat of the Week is being brought to you by McArdle's Restaurant in Fairport. Come home to McArdle's.
And now to Eichel. He floated one.
Welcome back. Thanks for joining us here on the Rochester Press Box. Our Unfinished Business segment is brought to you by the Genesee Brew House, your beer destination since 2012. Visit the gift shop, enjoy a tasting at our pilot brewery, and dine at the pub-style restaurant at the Genesee Brew House. Unfinished Business, Pat.
Syracuse basketball starts its first year without Jim Boeheim this season, and it's going to be weird, but it's probably for the best. I mean, you know how I feel about Boeheim and how the program's gone in the last couple of years. And a few years ago, they started something in Rochester that they should have been doing for the last 25 years. The men's team and the women's team, basketball teams, will be coming to the Blue Cross Arena for a fan event where they practice and put on scrimmages and sign autographs and take pictures and all this stuff for a couple of hours. Have a big-time presence in Rochester, which would have been a huge deal if it existed. When one of the 5 Rochester natives that currently play in the NBA were going to high school here in Rochester. They missed on all of them, whether they didn't want them and didn't see the talent, or whether those guys spurred them to go to other schools. How? A school like Syracuse, in a basketball hotbed that Rochester has become, did not have the presence it had. Whether it's arrogance, whether it's underappreciating the area, whether it's thinking that there's no way these kids were going to leave upstate New York to go play anywhere else. It's something that you desperately need to do now. And thanks to the guys that are in the NBA now that keep coming back every summer and having camps for kids and connecting with them and the attention that our area's got, this kind of thing, if they continue to do it, will absolutely, without question, benefit Syracuse basketball within the next 10 years.
This segment's called Unfinished Business, and Sha'Carri Richardson had unfinished business in a time in which most people would fold and often question whether or not the mental stability of athletes is the way it is compared to back in the day. Richardson, you may recall, was in a situation where she was asked about her mother who had passed away during a time in which she was going for the Olympics. Was not able to really answer the question, really got rattled on it, resulted in her taking allegedly marijuana, and was kicked off of the team, couldn't participate in that Olympics. For a lot of people, that would have shut them totally down, gone somewhere. We would have never heard of Sha'Carri Richardson again. But we did last week when she was in the Worlds and became the fastest woman in the world. We have to give credit for people who go through certain situations, whether we think that they're big or they're small, whether it's grief or losing something involving a job or a loved one or whatever it might be, and being able to mentally fight through that by continuing to perform, staying on course. I wish her the best of luck going forward. I'm hopefully she'll be able to redeem herself soon and get a gold medal. But to be the fastest woman in the world after going through all of that media scrutiny, all of those situations, shows you how mentally tough she is. We talk about mental toughness when it comes to athletes, so we have to applaud women like her and men that go through situations and still are able to perform. It's one of the things that people do every single day, but to do it on a stage where everyone's watching makes it even more special.
Silver Stadium was the home to the Rochester Red Wings from 1929 to 1996. I spent 16 years watching baseball there. 2 things stand out. Because the crown on the field was so high, you couldn't see the left fielder from the Wings dugout on the first base side. You could barely see the third baseman. The other, and this is true, I swear, the foul lines from the infield to the foul poles were painted on exposed wooden planks. Though I never saw a ball bounce off them or a baseball player tearing himself up trying to make a sliding catch into one of those, but the threat was always there. They served vinegar with the French fries and sauerkraut with the hot dogs. It was a charming old place. I got lucky because my first year at Silver coincided with Cal Ripken's arrival. 3 months of joy. Everyone knew he'd be a star. It was just a matter of how big. Turned out pretty big. Because there was less foolishness going in and around the game, the games mattered more at Silver. There was more of a baseball vibe there than at the new place. That became painfully obvious this week when Rochester pitcher Rodri Munoz gave up 5 runs on 5 walks, a wild pitch, and a hit batsman in 2 innings. Less than great. But he got cheered by the crowd, apparently appreciative of the effort, when he left. That would not have happened at Silver. That's where we are these days. And that is why Leslie David Baker, Kate Flannery, and Brian Baumgartner have helped produce 3 of the biggest crowds over the last 5 years of what is now Innovative Field. They are Stanley, Meredith, and Kevin from the Office television series. Guests of the Red Wings who can really pack them in to take selfies for $30 a whack. Who's right? Which is better? Who's to say? I'll leave it to the words of the late, great Rochester sports writer George Bahan, who saw it all. Said George, quote, "If you haven't been to Frontier Field, you should go to confession." That is our Unfinished Business, brought to you by the Genesee Brewhouse, and we thank them for their participation in this show. What about sauerkraut and hot dogs?
I am not a big fan of sauerkraut. I could not. I tried it so many times as a kid watching baseball, and I just can't do it.
What are you talking about? Cabbage is good. Any kind of cabbage is good.
I didn't say cabbage wasn't good.
No,
I
it's cabbage. I'm just saying no, it's cabbage.
Cold out high break, I like it with a good mustard.
Just vote on sauerkraut. Let me know what you think.
That is our program. We'll see you again next week on the Rochester Press Box.
On your hot dog?
Yeah, I can eat sauerkraut. I mean, look, if I'm eating a white hot and there's sauerkraut there, sauerkraut's going on that white hot.
No, it is not. Not for me.